on CityCast Nashville. I'm excited to welcome Emily Siner, a contributing writer for the Nashvillager, a daily newsletter from Nashville Public Radio. Once a week, Emily shares a segment called Give a Rec, Get a Rec, where she offers hard-to-find recommendations for folks in Middle Tennessee. Need a cobbler? Or maybe you've got that pesky lamp that's been sitting around unfixed for 2 years. Well, Emily's got you covered. And hey, I even get to give a few recs of my own. It's Tuesday, March 4th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Okay, so what inspired the Nashvillagers' weekly quest to start sharing hard-to-find recommendations for Middle Tennessee? Did someone write in asking for a rec, or did you first give a rec?
This came from a totally selfish place.
Oh,
so,
good.
As one of the hosts of the Nashvillager newsletter is kind of this curated newsletter filled with local news that's powered primarily by the local reporters at WPLN News and the music station WNXP. But it's hosted every day by someone in the newsroom. And I am constantly minding my own life for material that will kind of like help open the newsletter, either relating to the news of the day or just helping people think about their city a little bit differently. And so I wrote about this moment in December where I went to the shoe repair place that I've been going to for 10 years, Jensen's Shoes, and I brought some winter boots there to get fixed. And I realized when I got there that they were closed. They had closed down. It turns out they had closed down several months before. I obviously didn't go that often, but I wrote about this as kind of like a way to just talk about how when you're in a community, it's really nice to make friends, and that's really important. But it's equally as important to have people that you kind of rely on for these things where it's just like you need a guy to do something and you know who those people are. I call it like the outer circle. And Jensen's Shoes was part of my outer circle, and I was really sad I didn't have it anymore. So I wrote about this, and then people started writing unsolicited. They started writing in like where I can get my shoes repaired instead of this place that was no longer open. And I just thought that was such a cool way for the readers to respond. So I shared those recs out with the audience. And then I was like, if you have any recommendation requests for things that are kind of hard to find, or you don't know where to get something fixed, or you're trying to find something that's not easily Googleable, we've got tons of readers who are really well connected. Let's use the brain trust. And it just has gone from there.
It really has us all thinking here at CityCast, these analog, like family-owned businesses, are we seeing them disappearing across Nashville or across the country? What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, in this case with Jensen's Shoes, the owners retired after many decades. So it wasn't that they were closing down for economic reasons, it seemed, at least from the news article that I read about it. So I do think a lot of these places started at an earlier era when it was maybe there was more emphasis on trades or a little bit easier to start a family business, and then you could get your kids involved, but now they're not involved anymore. So I think that's kind of like one reason why it seems like they're disappearing. That's a really good question about kind of like, is the trend going that way? It probably is. But through this series, I've actually learned a lot about kind of like what people are doing now to keep some of these trades and especially the fix-it things alive.
Well, I feel like my parents, they never bought anything new. They always would just get things fixed for themselves. And I think that is a generational thing because here in my community in East Nashville, there's several townhouses. And so I get a good view of the dumpster whenever I take out the trash. And I really, truly believe that I see the worst of humanity in my dumpster. And people are just throwing things away rather than getting them fixed. And I feel like with your article, it's actually giving people tangible, recyclable, reusable, sustainable actions for our community.
I know, yeah. And I think I've always been interested in like thrifting and sort of buying sustainably, buying things that are reused. But I haven't always thought about how I can just make sure that I reduce my waste. And I think these kinds of recommendations are really helpful.
So you found community in this experience. And why was that important to you?
One of the reasons why I feel like I can never move Nashville is because I have a handyman who I love. He's so great. And I know how hard it is to find a good handyman. I'm like, how can I find another handyman in another city? That's not the only reason. I also have great friends here. But those people anchor you in a way that I think is often underappreciated.
I had a hairdresser in Brooklyn for 10 years. And then when I went to make an appointment, she was gone. And truth be told, I didn't even know her last name. I just knew her as Megan. So then I couldn't find this woman who, as a performer, as an actor, like my hair was a big part of me. And she, it was thanks to her. And so all of a sudden, since she was gone and I never saw her again, it was quite devastating.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that's the kind of person too, like the people who you go to sort of because you know that they do a specific skill really well that you need. But then like some of those people see you in kind of a vulnerable place. Like you want to make sure that you trust them. And I feel like hair is part of that, or finding an accountant where it's like they're dealing with your money. Like that is the kind of thing where you're like, once you have your person, you're like, please never leave.
Where does like Facebook recommendations fall in this circle? Maybe like a neighborhood group. Do you think Facebook is less useful than it used to be?
I think it depends on the group. I mean, I think even a very large group of people, like the readers of the Nashville Villager, can provide useful information. They're giving you, specific recommendations and kind of saying why they recommend it or not. And that can be one of the values of going to a community group as opposed to just going to like Yelp or Google reviews. It also depends on what kind of recommendation you're looking for. So one of the things I've realized as I've started to do this weekly series is that they're like different buckets of recommendations. So they're the things that are, like you're saying, the hairdresser or the accountant. It's like there's so many people and very, very personal. And you really only need to find one. And it's probably going to be different than what someone else values. And so you kind of just have to like find the friend who knows someone, which is something that you can't really ask a big group of people. I think if you went, and I've seen people do this, they'll like ask in the East Nashville Facebook group for a recommendation of a hairdresser, and you just get, dozens of recommendations, and it's almost not even that valuable. There's the kind of recommendation that's like Googleable but rare, which I feel like the shoe repair was. I could Google shoe repairs and those came up, but it was helpful to have people say like, oh, I go to this place because I have known this person for a long time and they gave me a good price on my boots. And I like, that just helps me feel like a little bit better about trying a new service.
I did ask a group of friends where to go get my haircut. And now we all have the same haircut.
Wow, I love that.
We can all tell like where we all go. And yeah, it's like, it can all be traced back to a lady in Madison.
I don't want to ask publicly because I don't want everyone to go to her, but I want to know who you go to.
Oh, I will send you. She's amazing. She's the owner of a tiny little place in Madison, and she's great.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. She does talk a lot. I will just say that. So you have to kind of block out your calendar for that, but she's worth it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the recommendations you've gotten from your readers. My favorite place in Nashville to take friends from out of town is the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. It makes me feel so proud to be able to show off our city's country music roots. But y'all, it's not just a tourist attraction. Did you know that local kids always visit free at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum? Kids age 18 and under who are residents of Davidson and bordering counties, including Cheatham, Robertson, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, and Wilson, can take advantage of all the engaging and educational activities the museum has to offer this spring at no cost. Plus, they can bring 2 accompanying adults who get 25% off admission. I love the museum's Taylor Swift Education Center. They've got music, dance, art programs, and on Fridays this month, you can check out Irish step dancing, a musical instrument petting zoo, and plenty of other fun activities. Learn more and plan your visit at countrymusichofoffame.org/local-kids. Okay, so you need a new cobbler.
Yes. There are only a few places in Nashville, at least, that seem to still do this work. There's a shoe repair shop called Peabody Shoe Repair on Thompson Lane. Another place in Madison called One Stop Shoe Repair. And then there's a guy in the arcade downtown called Tony's Shoe Repair. So it does seem like this is kind of, at least right now, a dying art. And I'm glad that there are still a few people out there.
Do we know if Tony is going to survive the renovations that the arcade is doing?
The reader who emailed me about him said that he's still in business.
Great.
And he needs the business. And there was actually also a tailor that was recommended in one of the other installments of Give a Rec, Get a Rec, who's in the arcade. So I have this plan to take the bus downtown with my clothes and my shoes, drop them off.
Well, that was my next question. Where do we get things altered?
So there are a lot of places in Nashville to get things altered. And I think this maybe falls in between the, rare but Googleable and the like too many to count, just ask a friend. There's Erica's Tailoring in Donaldson came recommended by a couple people. Happy Days Alterations in South Nashville. The Magic Room in Wedgwood, Houston. This place in downtown Nashville in the arcade that I was mentioning, Alterations by Semra. It seems like there are obviously a lot of people who do this kind of work, and a lot of people can do that kind of work themselves, but I can't. So I appreciate having the personal recs.
What about lamps? Say my lamp is broken. Where do I take it? Because people in my neighborhood, they just throw it away. I see it in the dumpsters.
We really need to do an anti-dump campaign in that part of East Nashville.
Yes, I've been thinking about putting signs up. Like, hey, wait a minute. Think about this for 1 second.
Yeah. So lamps are the kind of thing I would say are, rare but Googleable. When I Google lamp repair, there are a few places that specifically advertise that they do this. So there's a place called Cummings Lighting in Hendersonville. Also a place in Nashville called Nashville Lamp and Shades. And I feel like this is also the kind of thing that you could probably post about in a Facebook group, because some people do lamp repair on their own. I've definitely seen people post about how they've watched YouTube videos and bought lamp repair things.
I tried and was electrocuted. So,
oh my God,
just slightly, just a little shock.
All right, let me take back that recommendation. Don't do it on your own. Go to Cummings Lighting or Nashville Lamp and Shades and save yourself.
All right, my big question, because I have a whole container full of old cell phones and iPads under my bed. And at first I thought it was kind of cute that I have my little collector's items, but I mean, my BlackBerry is not going to be in use, and I don't know where to take these things.
I don't have a great answer. I know that places like Best Buy take electronics recycling, but I also, after reading more about where our recycled waste ends up, I cannot say with certainty if this gets converted into something, if it gets shipped off to beaches in other countries. I mean, I think this is one of the dilemmas of our modern age and just this age of consumption, is that sometimes there isn't a great way to dispose or recycle things in a way that's actually ethical. And the biggest thing is to be aware of what we're consuming.
What about digitizing old family albums and paper memorabilia?
So there's a Reddit thread about digitizing. Two of the recommendations are a place called Chromatics, which I think moved recently to Southeast Nashville, and then a place called Safe Light, which is south of Berry Hill. They also develop film.
Ooh. Also, Third Man Records, which is cool because it's right over near where Drury's used to be, that's where I knew you could go get your film developed. But now Third Man Records, which is cool.
That's cool.
This one is so cool from our newsletter editor. She actually inherited garments from the 1700s to the 1800s. But as cool as that sounds, they're covered in mold. So do you have any recommendations of where she could get these cleaned?
Can I ask questions first? How and why and from where?
I believe a family member was just keeping these clothes that were passed down from generation to generation. So when she inherited them, it was pretty neat that these are now hers, but they stink very badly. My mind immediately is get those cleaned up and donate them to a local high school drama club or something, or take it to the Antique Roadshow. I don't know.
When you Google how to clean clothes from the 1700s, you get a bunch of descriptions of how people washed their clothes in the 1700s. It's impossible to find anyone who says, I do this. I think this falls under the recommendation category of thinking outside the box, going to a vintage mall and seeing does anyone there know someone? I feel like this is the kind of thing that is rare enough that you just need to find someone who knows a guy.
Has anyone written in just about stains in general?
We haven't had any dry cleaning related questions. I would think that any good dry cleaner could at least try to get out an old stain, if even if it's pretty bad. Maybe not out of hundreds-year-old clothing, but it's worth asking.
Maybe a wedding dress that somebody accidentally spilled some coffee on 15 years ago.
Is this a personal question, Marie?
No, actually, from again, our newsletter editor. No, I'm single. The show knows this. All right. What about bookbinders?
Ooh, I actually know a bookbinder.
Really?
WPLN's news director, Tony Gonzalez, his wife is a professional bookbinder, and she's great. Her name is Katie Gonzalez. I know that there are other people in the city who do this, and this is the kind of thing like going to the craft fair at Centennial Park, which I think happens once or twice a year. Like you'll see these people who have very specific craft skills, and there may also be like other resources for that around the city, but check out Katie.
And then my last one, you uplifted a lot of different websites that shout out events here in Nashville.
Yeah, I loved this one. We were on a kick of a lot of kind of like how to fix old things, which I think is really great and great for recommendations. But someone wrote in asking about how she could find out more fun happenings that were going on in Nashville. And, you know, she was like, when I just Google like what to do in Nashville, you get a lot of touristy things. You get the Bridgestone stuff, but you don't necessarily get the like things that are a little bit smaller. And we got some really wonderful recommendations.
Well, one that you missed is Hey Nashville newsletter, our own.
Yes.
Written by Margaret Kingsbury. We do have events, so you can check out our website. All right, we're going to take one more break. And then since this is Give a Rec, Get a Rec, we want to give you some recommendations. Can I help you find anything, Emily?
I was told that you have great recommendations for what to do with old stamps, which I will be honest, I have no need for, but I am curious.
Well, so, yep, I do have a recommendation because I inherited so many stamps from my grandfather. He collected stamps his entire life. And after he passed, of course, I was like, this is going to be worth millions of dollars. I just need to find the right stamp collector who can tell me that. And so first, my mom and I did like the Google scan to try to compare these stamps to other ones that are really worth a ton of money. Turns out none of them were worth anything. I mean, one was worth like $7, and that was the most we could find. But then my mom had the great idea of going to a local stamp club. So we went over to the Nashville Philatelic Society, which is a word I've never used before to describe a stamp club. Nashville Philatelic Society that was established here in Nashville in 1886.
What?
And they meet on the second and fourth Mondays of every month at the Bavarian Beer House at Opry Mills Mall. And so my mom and I rolled up there with our books of stamps, and these people were so kind to kind of help go through them. And I mean, everybody had their stamp collections, and you know, they then also confirmed that they weren't really worth much. However, they did give us great advice, and they said, you know what you could use them for? As stamps. So if you ever need a stamp, I got stamps for days.
I mean, stamps are going up in price, so like that's
if I do mail you a letter, there's going to be about 20 stamps on them, but
yeah.
But it was really neat.
I know. I love that Nashville is big enough that there is a stamp collecting society that meets not once, but twice a month.
Twice a month. Yeah. We went to the Rainforest Cafe afterwards. It was quite a lovely night.
Do you recommend going to the Rainforest Cafe?
You know, if you have a great sense of humor, yes.
Yes.
We even
awesome.
got the picture. Like they came around, they're like, can we get your picture? We were like, you know what? Why not? We doubled down and really committed.
I've been trying to get my husband to take me there on a date for years, and he refuses to step inside.
It's really fun. There's thunder and lightning that goes off every couple of minutes that, you know, you watch children get scared. It's lovely. And the portions are gigantic. So you do get your money's worth.
That's great.
All right. What else would you like to know?
Well, this is something that I'm actually planning to ask the Nashville Villager Brain Trust at some point. I recently got a subscription to like a food prep delivery service, you know, where like they send you the recipe cards and all the ingredients, thinking that it would help me with my weeknight cooking. And what I realize is that actually what I'm looking for is someone, someone who can just make the food for me.
I
I don't
love
want to
that.
chop vegetables. And so I would love to know if you have any recommendations.
Oh, well, I love this idea. I would suggest the Sunflower Cafe, which is vegan, and they now offer heat and eat meals for delivery or pickup, and there's no subscription required. I think if you're really wanting to get healthy, the Sunflower Cafe would be a great place to start.
That's a great idea. And I feel like I don't get over to Berry Hill that often, but if they deliver, I'm all about it.
I know, right? Any other recs I can give you?
I want to really stump you. This was a question that came from a Nashville Villager reader that also will probably go out to our full readership at some point soon, but maybe you have ideas too. She was asking where we can donate clothes besides just a Goodwill drop off. And I loved this idea because, like, we were talking about being sustainable with our choices is really important. So she wanted to see if there were any, specifically like local based companies or organizations that did this kind of thing.
My favorite place in town is Plato's Closet. I go to the one in Madison or Rivergate area, and you can make an appointment and drop off. You can either donate or you can try to make some money off your clothes too. So it's a consignment type store, and so they'll buy your donations off you. What I like most about Plato's Closet is that it's size inclusive. So there's lots of different options. But yeah, I think that that's a great question too. I mean, I have so many running shoes that I need to get rid of, and I want to donate because they're good shoes, but they've just been worn out, but I don't know where to take those.
I've heard that you can take your running shoes to the Nashville Running Company in East Nashville on Woodland Street, and they take donations and rehome old shoes.
Ah, this is blowing my mind. I have 7 pairs.
I'm glad you're saying that because I do need a new pair of running shoes, and I've never thought about doing something other than throwing them out. So I'm glad to reduce my waste here. I appreciate that your recommendations of where to donate clothes are also places that you can get clothes for yourself. So
right.
I know. I cleaned out my closet and now I'm ready for more.
I dropped 2 bags at the Goodwill and then took myself to Plato's Closet to get some new things. That's how it works, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned film development, which means you might also want to know about where to get cameras fixed. Is that a question you might have?
Yeah, I have this old film camera that I bought when I was in college on eBay, and I thought it was very cool taking pictures with my friends with my film camera. I think the film that's in there has been in there since 2010 and still has some shots left. So I now know where to get the film developed. But yeah, what happens if the camera breaks?
Well, a great recommendation from our producer, Daniel Sumstein. He recommends people going to Artifact in the shops on Fatherland. It's a camera shop that does repairs.
Yeah, I think Artifact is one of the places where you can drop off your film and then it gets sent to a place in Donaldson called Boutique Lab, which is another place that was recommended on this Reddit thread. So it's a one-stop shop.
You've also written about repair fairs, which is such a cool idea. Can you tell us about that and where we can find them?
Yeah, this is awesome. And one of my favorite things that has come out of this series in the Nashville Villager. So someone wrote in saying, the Donaldson Public Library is having this repair fair coming up. You should go check it out because it kind of ties into what you're writing about in the Nashville Villager. And so when I signed up online, it said you can bring 2 items to be repaired and any items. And the only thing I could think of was clothes because I have a lot of clothes that have holes in them or the seam is ripped, but I don't do that myself and I've been too lazy to bring them to a seamstress. So I didn't bring 2. I brought 6 different clothes and I was like, maybe they'll have time. They did. There were these 3 women there who were all volunteering to sew things up and they sewed up all the stuff I brought. But what was even cooler was seeing what other people brought because it was way outside of, I was just sort of I have clothes. Someone brought their Roomba vacuum cleaner. There was a table of people who did kind of mechanical fixes. There was a table of people that were doing knife sharpening. There was a table of people who were fixing bikes. There was someone who'd brought her jewelry repair kit and was just there to fix minor fixes on jewelry. I think what was so cool about it was that it was a reminder, as amazing as it is to have people who were highly skilled and make this kind of thing their life's work, there are also a lot of people that can just do sort of minor things. And that takes care of a lot of the issues. That does reduce a lot of waste.
Do you know if they host these often?
From what I can tell, a couple of the library locations around town do this a couple times a year. It seems a little bit sporadic, but I hope that by talking about it, I will get whoever's at the library to listen and put it on more often because it was really cool. And it just felt like such a great community building activity too. Bringing something broken to someone else and having them fix it is like it's like a very vulnerable moment. And then it's sort of intimate in a way and like felt really nice to just be like, wow, you've seen my broken stuff and you've given it back to me whole.
Oh, what a gift. Truly.
Yeah.
So this idea of giving old stuff new life clearly struck a chord with your readers right now. Do you have any theories as to why?
Two reasons. I think the practical reason is that everyone has this stuff that they don't quite know what to do with, that they kind of know that they don't need to throw away, but they also are not sure how to fix it. And as we've been doing it more, like more people have been writing in to be like, wait, I have this old thing. Like, what about this? And it's sort of this excitement that like there may be a new life for something that you thought was just going to, stay in limbo forever. And then the more philosophical, like spiritual reason, I think, is that it does feel really nice to be connected with other people in this way. And what I mean by that is like, I feel really great being able to be the connector between people who need something and people who have the answer. And I think it's really nice to see that happening when you're the person who writes in with the answer, like to know that your answer is going to be shared with other people who are going to find it useful. Like there's something very satisfying about being someone who knows enough about this town that they like know the place, they know the guy. And I think this is the kind of thing that we do, in our own immediate circle all the time without realizing it. But to like realize that you can do that for a larger group of people too is just it fills up your soul.
Well, last week, my community's gate was stuck and one of the board members on our HOA had shown me how to fix it. So 5 cars were backed up. Everyone was honking. The thing was on an alert. And I came out there with my little wrench and I took the parts off and I just pressed on off and the gate opened. And I felt so proud. And then they felt so happy that I was able to give them the service so that they could go off to work and stuff. So, I mean, I think that it's a win-win for both parties, truly.
Yeah.
To be able to help people and to be helped.
Yeah, you kind of feel like a superhero. And like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience where like you're talking to friends and they mention they're looking for something and you're like, oh, try this. And then if they do try it, you're like, yes, like I did that. That's because of me. And it just feels like really, really nice.
And I think we need that more than ever these days. So thank you so much. This has been so fun talking to you. I can't wait to read next week's recommendations.
You're so welcome. Thank you for all the recs and just grateful to be able to share more about it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!